The American Civil War took place between March of 1861 and April of 1865. The conflict divided the United States, and rough battles were fought on both sides for the Union and the Confederacy. But as time went on, the Confederate Army began to feel serious strain under the pressure of the Union forces. On April 9th, 1865, General Robert E. Lee's retreat with the remainder of his cavalry was halted by General Ulysses S. Grant near Appomattox Courthouse. Instead of making a last stand, General Lee sent a letter to Grant asking for a negotiation for terms of surrender, effectively ending the separation of the northern and southern states. Here at Appomattox, the site of the famous surrender has become a natural park and historic landmark for anyone willing to learn about the history of the war. Located just off of Highway 24 and about a 30-minute drive from Lynchburg College in Lynchburg, Virginia, the park acts as both a theater and a museum, showcasing the brave soldiers who fought on both sides, the purpose of every building in the area, and the added history of those last few days of the war, something that a school textbook or internet site just cannot describe fully.
I think this is perhaps the greatest American story. I've worked at a lot of national park sites, but I joined the National Park Service because I wanted to ultimately work here at Appomattox. I just think that one of the biggest questions in our nation's history was answered here. Could this nation survive a civil war? And the answer at Appomattox was yes. And a lot of nations through history didn't survive their civil wars, or they certainly didn't end this way. It's a very special story that I truly feel that all Americans can be proud of what happened here, north, south, or otherwise.
The McLean House, located just off to the side from the Visitor Center, is the building where the official surrender actually took place. General Lee and General Grant both walked in to peacefully resolve a conflict that had caused so much pain and destruction. And while the war did not immediately end at the signing of those documents, this was the start of the healing process that would push the nation into Reconstruction.
Well, I think it is the seminal event of the American Civil War. It was supposed to set the tone for bringing the states that had seceded back into the Union. It was an idea of reconciliation. The terms that General Grant offered to General Lee had actually been laid out by President Abraham Lincoln. All that the Army of the Confederacy, Army of Northern Virginia rather, was supposed to do was lay down their arms, agree not to fight again until properly exchanged, have rolls made of the men that did surrender, that copies would be kept by the Union and copies kept by the Confederacy, and that the officers were allowed to retain their sidearms, their private baggage, their horses, and pretty much that was it. So it was very, very, very generous terms. Once again, the concept of reconciliation. Unfortunately, the surrender of the Army of Northern Virginia took place on the 9th of April. The formal parade that the Confederates stacked their arms was on the 12th, and 2 days later, during the play of Our American Cousin, Abraham Lincoln was shot in the back of the head, dying the following morning. With him died any hope of reconciliation. From then on, it was retribution, recrimination, and Reconstruction.
Appomattox Courthouse National Park is typically open 7 days a week in seasonal shifts during the winter and summer, where one can explore the 1,700 acres of land, as well as the trail the soldiers took to the site where it all happened. The park's schedules change daily depending on the weather and number of visitors, usually including live reenactments such as the signing of parole papers, firearm drills, and the stacking of arms. The staff at the park encouraged people to understand how the soldiers felt when they came here, and the conditions they faced as they unknowingly neared the end of the war.
there's something very unique about Appomattox for the National Park Service in that this is the only spot in the National Park Service sites for Civil War where two armies come here and only one leaves. You can't say that about Gettysburg or Vicksburg or Manassas or Fredericksburg, meaning that something very big happened here, a big question was answered here, and that in fact the nation would survive Civil War, and that it could be done in a dignified way with honor and respect to the degree possible. And Lee and Grant and Lincoln all deserve a lot of credit for that, and hundreds, if not even thousands of men that bought into that notion while they were here. Not every man did. There were those that hated the idea of the surrender. But overwhelmingly, most of them seemed to buy into the fact that they did their duty as they saw it. They were being surrendered now, or they were victorious, and it was time to go home and move on to the next thing. I think, again, all Americans can come to Appomattox and draw on that message, on that event that happened here, regardless if your ancestry was Southern or Northern, whether it was defeated or victorious here at the time, because of what happened here happened, we're all one nation now. It's because of what happened here at Appomattox.